And you're gonna be taking the notes, right? The minutes?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. A pretty good turnout tonight. Shh. So good evening, everybody. Doing okay? Okay. Long week, yes. We have a long weekend too, so ahead, so that should be able to give you some comfort.
Alrighty, everyone, we are live on Facebook, so y'all can go ahead and get started.
Okay, so thank you so much, Kiana. Good evening. We're here on the September 2nd meeting of the Mission and Vision Subcommittee of the SJREC. Welcome, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. As I mentioned, Commissioner Russell, she had a work meeting and she's going to be joining us later in the call, but you've all received the agenda for this evening, so we have a pretty packed agenda, so we're going to try and make sure we get to everything. We didn't get that video that I had mentioned in the agenda. Kim and Leslie were working on a video, to give us some guidance as to how to go about to do the recommendations. So, but I don't think I didn't get a copy of the video, so I don't know if it's finished, but we're gonna just then skip that in the agenda. So before we start, welcome everybody, and I just want to do some kind of icebreaker, and to keep it simple and real, let's do talk about describe your favorite food or your favorite meal or a favorite food experience that you've had that's been exceptional. Let's start. I'm gonna go in order here that I can see you guys in the screen. So I'm gonna go ahead, and I have Kim. Is that something you would like to share?
I was trying to think. I guess for me, recently I was in Savannah and went to the Gray, which has been highlighted. And I just find the service and the history and the food tremendous. So if you're in Savannah, the Gray.
What kind of food? What do you eat?
They use local produce, and she sort of comes up with a combination of her Caribbean background and Southern background based on whatever she can get from the local farms. So it's probably contemporary cuisine. So it's really very fresh and great. So I recommend it.
Sounds good. Okay. The Gray, you said it's called the Gray?
The Gray, yeah, it's been highlighted in New York Times, and it's Savannah. It's in Savannah. So
okay.
It's an old Greyhound train station. I mean bus station. So that's why.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, I should go there. Wonderful. So next we have Amy. Amy, share some of this deliciousness.
My goodness, I am also trying to think.
Because we know you like food, so.
I love food, sadly. I love food. So many wonderful experiences. I mean, just really any travel. So, oh my goodness, let's see. An authentic luau in Hawaii, the amazing food, some amazing dumplings in Hong Kong. There's a traditional dessert in the Philippines. Yes, to your point, I love food. So all of the above.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Let's see. Now we have David Alexander, Mr. Reverend.
Good evening, everyone. Gosh, well, two things popped up in my mind. The first was recently this summer, my wife and I got away for our first vacation without the kids ever. And so that was really quite wonderful. We snuck down to New Orleans for a few days. And so they've been on my mind because of the last couple of days and everything that they've been through. But there's so many great places to eat. And one of the reasons we went there was we knew we could eat really, really well. Like we could eat like New York City well, on a much lower budget, which fit us and have a great time. So so many great places in New Orleans. And then I'm from New Mexico, grew up in Albuquerque, and my mom is still there. And so it's chili roasting season.
Ah.
New Mexico, hatch green
Oh,
chili.
yeah.
So anything with green chili, you put it on eggs, put it on cheeseburgers, put it in anything, enchiladas, etc. So love
Sounds
food.
yummy.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Another foodie. Great. Wonderful. And I know Commissioner Kane said she was at work, so I don't know if she's going to be able to speak, but she did mention that she just went to Serena Thai in Chambly and had an amazing 3-spice flavor whole fish. They fry a whole fish and use Thai spices. It was amazing, she said. Has anybody else been there to Serena Thai in Chambly? Yeah, I've never been there, but it sounds delicious. Well, thank you so much, Commissioner Kane, for sharing that. Now we have Commissioner Carrillo.
So it's funny, you mentioned hatch green chilies because my husband has a standing order every year if we get hatch green chilies, and he roasts them, and we do all kinds of things. So that brought to mind one of my favorite restaurants in Tucson, which is Mi Nadito restaurant. Just the most fabulous food. It had its moment in the sun with Bill Clinton. That's his favorite Mexican restaurant. So if you ever get to Tucson, look up Mi Nadito. But here, I would have to say that one of my best meals I've ever had in Atlanta was at the Alden when we did the chef's tasting menu. It's very pricey, but the food was tremendous.
Oh, it's great to hear. Okay, wonderful. So we have our meeting this evening. I'm going across. I see here Steve Chapman. He's the assistant city manager. He's in for Christian Sigmund this evening. Welcome, Steve, to the meeting. And do you want to share a special meal experience or food or anything with our group?
Sure. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. The few weeks ago we went to France, so we had our fill of foie gras and beef tartare with plenty of wine. So my wife and I are foodies, so we do definitely go through and try and find the best restaurants wherever in the world that we find ourselves. So yeah, that's the most recent fun thing we did.
Okay. Oh, wonderful. That sounds great. And you were able to travel abroad, which is fantastic. So
yes, we
that's
snuck it
wonderful.
in.
Yeah, you snuck it in right before. Okay, wonderful. Thank you all. Welcome to our meeting. And then we have Commissioner Owen.
Hi, good evening. So I really enjoy Italian food. So, some of the Brookhaven ones like Italiano and Nino's over on Cheshire Bridge. And a couple of years ago, we were able to go to Italy and spend a couple weeks over there and just really enjoyed that experience.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, great. And then Kiana, would you like to share your favorite food experience or meal or gastronomic?
Absolutely. So in 2019, I got to go to Puerto Rico with Oglethorpe, and I had mofongo there for the first time, and I've literally been thinking about it ever since. I want to go back and have it. If you don't know what it is, it's a base of fried mashed plantains, and then they top it with like meats and sauces.
Shrimp, and it has like pork, it has mashed pork rinds, and it's very good. And you top it with like shrimp, or it's very good. Oh, wonderful. That's fantastic. Good. Good. Well, I also, I think we have a subcommittee full of foodies. I love food too. I love, whatever it is, I love it. And, but I like a lot of the foods that you mentioned here, but I also like a good old fashioned burger. I love burgers, and one of my favorite burger places recently is this place up here in this part of town called Moxie Burger. It's up in Roswell and Marietta. There's a few venues, but they make some really, really great burgers. It's just, you can top it with whatever you like, but I like to keep it simple. You can top it with like fried green tomatoes and, blue cheese and, fig jam and stuff like that. But I just like, plain, cheese and lettuce, tomato, and ketchup and onions. So anyway, well, now you guys all made me hungry. So let's go ahead and thank you for sharing your favorite food. So now we're going to go ahead, and Marcella and I sent an email earlier today. She sent it through Basecamp, I think, and I sent it through the email with the minutes from last month. Does somebody want to introduce a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from last
Okay.
meeting.
Commissioner Carroll, thank you. Does somebody second that motion?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Alexander. Thank you so much. So Kiana, please note that the minutes have been approved from last meeting, and I hope that many of you were able to be at the meeting last month. We had our very own Commissioner Korn do a training looking at the city through the lens of like a human lens. You know, it's a city that is multidimensional. It has as you know, where we look at the aspirations for the city. So it was a pretty cool way to look at the city, different attributes, you know, that the city has, like a Rubik's cube. So that was really cool. So thank you so much, Commissioner Korn, for lending your expertise to our commission and to our subcommittee. And then, Commissioner Russell and Kim and I, we've been talking in the last week or so. I know that, we've been trying to talk about, where do we head now? And, do we should do some more community engagement to find out more about the mission and vision, what people think about it. But we had a really great conversation about a week and a half ago. And we came to the realization that we want to focus more on steer away from, looking at the documents that we said we were going to look at. We said we were going to look at the city charter and look at some of these governing documents for biases against equity, or, for language that was not equitable or didn't reflect values of social justice. And we pretty much decided that it was such a lengthy document and, it's pretty technical that we're leading in the direction of using that as one of our recommendations, that, an outside agency would review the city charter through an equity lens and, for bias and other things like that. So because it was just way too lengthy and way too technical, and we just should leave that to the experts and just focus more on process of, and our recommendations. So we decided to move away from that. And we also were trying to figure out, how can we get some community engagement that's just specific to our mission and vision. We've done a lot of civic dinners, we've done a lot of pop-ups and stuff, but we wanted to do something that was more specific and literally ask people, how do you feel about the mission and vision of the city, and do they reflect, the city where you live, or where you shop, or where you work, or, where you play. And what we decided in a conversation with Kim was that will be one of the, as we prepare the recommendations, that should be one of the recommendations that we make, that community engagement be part of this process of recrafting the mission and vision. So we decided, that, if our recommendation tends to lean in the direction of, recommending that a new mission and vision be drafted for the city, that the community engagement is actually part of that process. So not that we do it ahead of time, but that it will be part of the process when it's done properly. So that made a lot of sense to us. And then we decided to focus more and shift gears more to focus on the process. And, we've discussed here a lot of cities and municipalities in Georgia and outside of Georgia that have been doing equity work. There's different types, some have been doing it for longer, some have been doing it, in the way of, very informally, some it's more formal through a commission or, an office within City Hall. So we compiled a list from the cities that Steve Cosby gave us a few months ago. I don't know if you remember his presentation. He talked about some of the cities in the US that had done some equity work. And I also reached out to the Georgia Municipal Association. We had a representative from Equity and Inclusion at our last meeting at Linwood Park. And he sent me, they have, he's the person in charge of diversity and inclusion, and they have resources. And I asked him to tell me of other cities outside of Georgia and in Georgia that are doing equity work. And he provided me a good list. So the list that I sent in the agenda this past week is sort of a compilation of the list from Steve and the list from the Georgia Municipal Association regarding cities and municipalities in and outside the state that have been doing equity work. Kim, you had a question. Oh.
Not so much a question, so maybe Amy can ask a question. I just wanted to, before I have to switch to phone, so before I wanted to clarify a couple of points.
Okay, sure.
Amy wants to.
Thank you. Just a quick question about all the data that has been gathered thus far, whether that be at the civic dinners or these community meetings. Do we have something that shares with us everything that we've heard thus far? I know maybe the questions weren't specific to mission and vision, but I do know some of the other subcommittees have said they've done surveys. So what have we learned, and do we have that information?
I don't currently have it, but I think is it available? Do we have like summaries from each of the dinners and the pop-ups and findings?
Yeah, I sent what we have so far. They're finishing compiling all of the data from both the surveys that were done at the pop-ups, comments. I think we're finishing up the meetings with the council, so those are being collected. So we'll all be put together. So Amy, your question sort of goes back. I just wanted to sort of pick up on Axe's grounding here. Couple of things that we suggested. One is that from that data, all that the qualitative data, because it's not very much quantitative, I think this subcommittee will find and be able to put together a case statement that says why the mission and vision should be revisited. Not what it is, but that it should be revisited, what people find. And, I mean, I think that's going to be a very straightforward exercise that this committee could do. So what our thought is that, particularly building upon the work that Amy did with the committee last week, you now have a better understanding of what it takes to really pull together a mission and vision statement and how you would values and so forth. And so what would it look like, and how could it be that an inclusive process could occur in Brookhaven to revisit the mission and vision and build upon the assets and quality that people share during these various settings. And so the goal was, if you were to look across the country at cities that either similar size, diversity, we're looking in progressive in terms of DEI, what have they done? And what processes did they employ to do an inclusive, thoughtful revisit of their mission and vision, or creation of their mission and vision statement? And so the thought was that if this committee, let's say, 6 people on the committee looked at 6 cities, you all would come back with probably some best thinking that you could apply to Brookhaven, which would then in turn be your recommendations. So your recommendations will come, one, you'll make your case statement based on what you heard and learned through your individual experiences and the data that is being compiled by Mindy. Secondly, based on these intimate conversations that you each have with leaders of each city, you will now learn, how did they get different diverse audiences out? Did they have a third-party consultant? If so, how much did it cost? How did they increase the knowledge and capacity around community? Were there TV shows, radio, pop-ups? Get all these best ideas and then come back with your recommendation, particularly with the idea that if you can get some idea, particularly around structure and cost, the idea is to make sure that it gets part of the budget process for Brookhaven for 2022. So that's where we landed in the recommendation to this committee.
So yes. So yeah, we decided to just focus more on like there's other cities that have done this. Let's go reach out to them and, let's see what the best practices are, what lessons learned, and what can we, not reinventing the wheel, but how can we, learn from what these cities have already done, what's worked and what hasn't worked. So, so we are going to be at the end of the meeting, we're going to be assigning the cities that were at the bottom of the agenda last week. There are probably about one, maybe 2 cities per commissioner. But, as Kip said, if we can just go and learn more about the processes that went into this, I've been already in touch with the lady from Linda from Decatur. She was our speaker a few months ago. I reached out to her this this past week, and she was explaining to me about the Better Together process. And so I tell her I would call her back and reach back to get more details about it. But we just want to get, like, you prepare like a little report, with what you learn from each of the cities. Again, addressing some of the questions that Kim submitted. We can provide some questions for guidance if you want to, but just like a little report of how the process went about. How was the community engagement piece of it? How was it done? Was it with a commission like we're doing it? Was it, through an ordinance? Was there a formal ordinance creating the, this initiative? Just all sorts of questions. And some of it you should be able to find hopefully online, because some of these cities I checked, they have pages about, that particular commission or initiative, and others you will have to reach out by phone or email. And hopefully we want to get this done in the next few weeks so that we can have all these reports done before our next meeting in October. And as Kim said, we haven't really articulated what our recommendations is going to be, but I think from what we've been discussing for the last few months, as she, said, our recommendation is, it's going to be to revisit the mission and vision. I think based on everything that we've learned over the past 8 months, about the city and the processes that went into this mission and vision and the history of the city, I think we would, we haven't again said this, but I think that we would be leaning towards a recommendation that the mission and vision be revisited and make a case statement for why this is, and then accompany with recommendations. So I think by going to these cities, we're going to be able to get some pretty concrete and real world recommendations. So we thought that was a good way to shift our gears in the few months that we have to finish this work. So I, with that, Christian, who couldn't be here today, he's aware of that. Because the budget is going to be approved for next year, is going to be approved before we finish our recommendations. But he did assure me that, the same thing happened with this commission last year, but it was funded, even though it was, approved after. But, he did say that there was going to be funding for us to be able to implement our recommendations. And, the city, this is a city that has to follow certain, processes and protocols. And that's why we have Steve Chapman here today. He's going to talk to us briefly. And as Kim mentioned, we don't want him to be prescriptive, and we don't want him to limit us in terms of what this process will look like. But there's some, rules and protocols that, have to be followed when you're doing, planning processes like that. So I wanted for Steve to share briefly some of the last two city planning processes and how they went, so that this may illuminate and provide a way for us to, to see what this process would be like. Again, without prescribing us or without constraining us, just that so that we could get a general idea of what it would cost and what it would, what it would entail. So, Steve.
Okay. Once again, just so I can introduce myself, I'm Steve Chapman. I'm actually the deputy city manager now. I had a title change here recently, and was the CFO as well. I like Christian, I've been in this business a long time, going on 30 years now, and I've been a part of a couple different strategic planning and vision mission statement type of rewrites. Did a big one for the city of Tamarack when I was there. So I've been through the process really multiple times and know how it really goes. Now, the first thing I think I'm going to have to correct the committee on a little bit. The budget will be in place before your recommendations come out. So anything that comes out of this committee's work will have to be amended in next year's budget. So there will not be a budget number for a vision mission statement, because the city council will have to vote on that, make a decision for it. It doesn't mean they can't do it. It doesn't mean they will do it, but we're not going to try to put the cart before the horse in funding something that the city council hasn't already approved. So I just want to be clear on that we probably will not have the funding in the 2022 adopted budget. It will have to be amended into it. Reason is these studies, if you do them correctly, are expensive. And when I mean expensive, I'm talking about $100,000, maybe $125,000 to do it correctly. Now, just to do some of the more, I'm going to say simpler or more focused studies that we've had, like the Buford Highway Character Area Study, the Murphy-Candler Character Area Study, our community plan in general, our comprehensive plan for the city. Those cost in the $70,000 range to get those done. And the reason that these studies are so expensive is there's a number of things that take place. And I'll just kind of go down a list that what we currently put into our request for proposals for outside firms to be able to manage. One, they have community meetings. They have pop-up meetings on site of where things are going. They will literally put a website up for people to engage with. We will have paid social media. We will have interactive surveys. And again, you can imagine that the scope of this is going to be big because it will encompass the whole city. Again, it's not like just the Buford Highway Character Area or the Ashford Park Character Area. So you can imagine the scope of this gets much bigger. Then we've held stakeholder meetings, which include city staff, elected officials, other key stakeholders. We invite business owners, anybody that has a stakeholder in the community. We would have a steering committee for this. So along with the mayor and city council, we would more than likely appoint a group of people to help with the steering of the work getting done on redefining the vision, mission, and goals of the city. That goes on. Again, with that, there are different pieces of the process. So whenever you're redoing, the vision for the city, a vision is really like a 30-year view. Where do you see yourself in the future? And then the mission behind it is you see yourself there in the future, and what is the mission? What's that road to getting there? And then you set goals behind that to make sure that you have the stepping stones along that road. So as that process goes through, and it's a rather long process, I'm going to say at a minimum it's 6 months. I've seen them take as long as 18 months to go through. So you'll have initial meetings, and you'll get some initial data, much like this committee has found whenever you're learning about how things work, and you start looking at the charter and you start saying, whoa, it is a very technical document. Maybe we need to look at something else, or we're going to hand that off to an expert to deal with that. Once those first rounds of meetings go through, then the city will come back with maybe more specific stakeholder groups, or do workshops, or something that the community development department calls SJRECs, that a consultant facilitates so that we can get additional information. Ultimately, it comes back to the city council for them to make final decisions on, and making sure that the vision of the city is really what their stakeholders, the people that vote for them to put them in this representative government, expect that they want to be. So that's usually the process. So what's important from this subcommittee would be to, in your recommendations, define the things or the outreach that is important for us to be able to have in that request for proposal, if and when we actually do go out and engage a firm to do this work for us. This is, in the larger cities, you literally have people that do this strategic management as a full-time job. And as you understand, Brookhaven doesn't have that many people. We're pretty flat organization. So we will definitely outsource this type of work and then have a facilitator do it. It would be a lot of work for the staff as well. But I think that if this, through your recommendations, and if this subcommittee could at least set some things that you would consider as high priority goals or outreach or things like that that you can derive from the other communities when you do your interviews with the other communities, that we could literally have one of the best planning processes for this around, because we would be taking in all the information from our sister cities to be able to put one really good document together. So does that give you enough information of how this process would work, or is that where you want to go with this? I mean, I can talk to a number of different things if you like.
Would anybody want for Mr. Chapman to elaborate on any of these, Commissioner Corn?
I have a question. You mentioned stakeholders in terms of city council and others. In the chat, we were having a conversation, which Commissioner Alexander also brought up in a past meeting, about the various brands of the city, specifically Explore Brookhaven we've talked about before. So in this process, I guess, have you experienced a consideration of multiple brands and how the city is perceived, and taking that into consideration from a more holistic view, and not just mission and vision, but the actual brand and the tangent brands as well, like Explore Brookhaven?
Yeah, well, ultimately that would be part of what the vision of the city is, right? Whenever your vision ends up becoming your brand, and that works hand in hand. Explore Brookhaven, it's with it being a CBB, primarily funded with our hotel motel taxes, its mission is its mission is different than that from the city. Its mission is to promote tourism and to promote bringing people in and supporting the hotels and supporting the restaurants. So while I think it's sort of a symbiotic relationship, but Explore Brookhaven wouldn't necessarily have the same vision, mission, goals as the city overall would. It should fit within, it should fit within, but but again, they have a different vision. Their funding mechanism that makes their creation possible is restricted to what they can use it for. So is that where you were getting at?
Yes, and while I understand that in terms of their funding, I think that is actually a fundamental concern and issue that we've raised, which is, if their mission is to bring people into the city, hotel, motel, et cetera, that should be an inclusive environment in terms of who they are trying to bring in. And then we should be a welcoming city to everyone. And so that's why we had a specific conversation about that brand.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good. If you were to look at their vision mission, part of their mission statement is inclusiveness. And it's really interesting. I just found out the other day that the executive director went to I don't know all the initials, LGBTQ booking group that literally books like conferences for that community. And so she went to that to make sure that Brookhaven is on the map, to be able to sort that group and bring them into the fold with us. And so yeah, it's interesting that you say that. They do that. Yeah, the vision, the vision and mission for the CVB needs to work with the overall, the big umbrella of the city, needs to fit within. And that might be a recommendation from the subcommittee to the city council to make sure that happens.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions for Steve about process? And we can always, Christian is usually at our meeting, so we can always have him address questions, or we can always reach out to you, right, with more questions.
Absolutely, anytime. Yeah, and let me add one more thing that I think I also would put on the table for your group to think about. And I hate to think about you punting on the charter, but I think it would be very important because the charter is reviewed every 5 years. Okay, there will be a charter review committee assembled in 2022, and to begin their work probably in late 2022 and through 2023. I think I would highly recommend that somebody from the Social Justice, Race, and Equity Committee overall, and specifically this subcommittee, ask to have a seat on that charter review committee. And the reason is they go through the entire charter line by line. And if you have somebody that has the background of having sat on this subcommittee that's in that group, they can look at the charter line by line as they're doing the work to make sure that it's inclusive, to make sure that it doesn't have, I use the word discriminatory a lot, but from the Webster's perspective, make sure it doesn't have, gender pronouns in it, right? Make sure that it doesn't have language in it that would be culturally insensitive, things of that nature. So I would make sure that there was somebody from this subcommittee that the city council is a recommendation to the city council to say, hey, we want to make sure that you have somebody on that charter review committee next time to be able to review these type of things, because I believe it's very important.
Thank you for bringing that, because I do think it's very important. If there's going to be a review anyway next year, this will be a great chance, so we're not double doing everything twice. So this will be a great chance to incorporate somebody from this commission into that process for next year. So thank you. That's
perfect for this.
Yes. So thank you for that recommendation. And
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 then based on other things that I've heard the subcommittee chat about just this evening, it's good to the city's 10 years old now, so it's time to again take a wholesale look of the vision and mission. It's you have a city council that's grown up in their jobs, and the city has kind of stabilized. So it's time to take another look at that. And I think that's a wonderful recommendation to go ahead and recommend another look at that.
Well, thank you so much, Steve, for your time this evening. Thank you very much. And thanks for all you do for the city.
Oh, well,
and
I appreciate it.
Sure. So we just had Commissioner Russell just joined us, and I just wanted to see if she had, before we assign the cities, if she had any comments, Commissioner Russell, that you had about, the way we're shifting the gears of our subcommittee and going into, looking deeply into the work of the cities that have done equity and inclusion initiatives. What your thoughts are?
Yeah, it was good to see everyone. Please pardon my lateness. We have back to school night activities. So I think that we're on the right track. I think this is a beautiful way of us turning the corner and being able to, within a shorter amount of time, be able to provide recommendations to really be considered in the budget season. And so making those assignments around looking at different cities that had equity as their focus, or at least one of their major questions when designing their missions and evaluating them, I think it's a really great approach. And so I'm looking forward to our next leg of work.
Thank you so much. And, and also as we get ready to prepare recommendations, please go to Basecamp. And I tell this to all of us because we have been posting a lot of data, quantitative, qualitative data, research, articles, pictures from the first, from when the city was founded. We have old AJC articles there. There's a lot of information. There's a paper on Linwood Park that somebody at Georgia State wrote a PhD about Linwood Park. We've really been, putting all this stuff up there. And that book that we got from the city of Brookhaven that Christian gave us a couple of months ago, please review all these materials because I think as we get ready to write out our recommendations, we need to take into account all these resources that we have compiled that we may not have had a chance to look at. So I invite you to do that in the next few weeks as you do, your work with the different cities so that we can understand maybe deeper, some of these issues that we have talked about, but there's some, research done on some of these things. And I think you will find it pretty worth it because I've been putting a lot of stuff up there. I know others you have what we talked, with a few months ago about the cities that, where we grew up and stuff, what they've done. It's all up there. So it would be good if you can just take a look and see, make sure that you read. You don't have to read everything, but at least know what's up there and see how this will help us, make our case statement for Brookhaven, for the mission and for rewriting the mission and vision statement. So, do you have any questions, insights, feedback into the direction? Anybody? Disagreement? This is a bad idea, or okay, Commissioner Korn?
I'm not concerned. My question is, as we go to look at these cities and now turn toward their process, not their actual mission and vision statement, and maybe we looked at that to your point previously, are there a specific set of questions you want us to ask? Are we all gathering the same data the same way? And or are you just going to assign the city? So I guess my question is, our process of capturing this data, is there a specific list of questions you want us to ask and or answer?
We mentioned a lot of them, Kim and I mentioned some of them. We can, because you may be able to find different things for different cities. Some cities you may be able to talk to someone and others you may not. So you may have to rely more on the website and notes from meetings. So I don't know if we're going to be able to gather all the same information, but we can send some questions that that can be addressed so that we can try to gather the same information for each city. So we can work on that and send that. Okay. So Commissioner Carrillo. Oh, we can hear you. We can't hear you.
You're muted.
I'm
Muted.
so sorry. My concern was the same as Commissioner Korn. I just think it would be helpful to us in pulling together our case report that if we had a standardized list of questions
Okay.
that we could all work from. And if we can't fill them all out, we can't fill them all out. And if we get other information, we can append it. But at least that would give us a standardized review, and I think it would simplify the process. I did want to just flag something that stood out to me when we were first reviewing the city's charter, and that was the process that is spelled out in the charter for placing people on various boards and commissions. And if I recall off the top of my head, I think it just says that the city shall assemble a list of qualified candidates and the mayor will pick. And, when that came up, that was such a flag to me that is such a huge opportunity for us to improve diversity in the city. And I think we would really be missing an opportunity, even if we turn this whole project and the whole review over to somebody more qualified than us. If we didn't at least flag those instances and say that this could really move the needle for the city, and we would recommend that they address this.
Okay. Yeah. We'll take it. Yes, we'll include that in as we draft the recommendations. And Steve?
Yes, I just wanted to bring up that as you're engaging with other cities that have done this type of work, you know, one of the first questions might be to ask, did they hire an outside facilitator to do it? And if they did, they more than likely did an RFP or an RFQ process, a request for a proposal or a request for quotes. And if they did that process, 99.9% of the time, there will be language in there about why are they doing this RFP, okay? And then there will be standards of what they expect the facilitator to do. So you will have the information about how or how do they expect this facilitator to engage the community to answer these vision, mission, goal statements. And they would have had, you know, literally the reason why they wanted to do it really in the first paragraph of those RFPs. So if you're engaging, you know, I think I saw Griffin was one of the cities.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're engaging Griffin, you might want to ask them, well, did you hire a facilitator to do this? If the answer is yes, then you say, can I get a copy of the RFP and review the RFP? And that will give you solid data of what they asked that facilitator to do. And that'll also save you hours of asking them questions about things. If they did not do an RFP, then you need to talk to the actual person that was responsible for facilitating that process at whichever entity you're engaging with. Again, if Griffin didn't hire a facilitator, you need to say, well, who on staff did this? And then walk through questions about, well, how did you do it? What was the goal of it? What was important to the city council? Those kind of questions. Okay. That's all I had.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That's a very good point. Thank you for mentioning that, Steve. That will probably give us a lot of information. Any other questions? And so what given that, I think, based on your feedback, we should send a list of standardized questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get together with Commissioner Russell and Steve and Kim and come up with some questions. If you have any questions that you think should be included, please send them to me and I'll compile a list of questions. And so that we can have them by like mid next week, we have a long weekend. So maybe by Tuesday or Wednesday, I can send you the list of questions. But does that sound fair to everybody to get like a list of questions? And again, as Commissioner Carrillo said, we may not be able to answer all of them, but as much as we can answer, that will be great. So, so here are the cities. I don't know if you had a chance to see them in the email, but we have in Georgia, we have Griffin, Noonan, Athens and Clark County, and we have Decatur. And then we have about 6. You have about 10 cities total. So, and then we also wanted people to contact, there's this organization called GARE, G-A-R-E, which I actually reached out to, but I haven't heard back from them, which is like a national organization. And Stephen recommended that, Stephen Cosby from Chrysalis recommended that firm. So, we could have one of us also reach out to them to see what do they have. I know, for instance, like the Georgia Municipal Association, they send me a link. They have a link of resources that are out there available, for cities that are interested in doing this. So, somebody can look at those resources and reach further to GMA. So any more questions before we go about assigning the cities or? Okay, so does anybody have any, for Griffin, anybody interested in doing Griffin? Commissioner Cariello? Okay. Wonderful, thank you so much. And there's in the email, if you notice, there's a contact there that the GMA gave us. There's an email, there's a phone number, there's a link. So there's a contact is the city manager. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Commissioner Carrillo. What about the city of Noonan? They have a an action plan committee on race, equity, and justice. Is anybody interested in doing Noonan? Commissioner Alexander, okay. Wonderful, thank you so much. And again, there's a contact there that GMA sent to us with the city manager. What about Athens and Clark County? Anybody interested in any UGA grads interested in any dogs? No. Because if you don't volunteer, we're gonna have to volunteer you. So anybody interested in the city of Athens, Clark County? Yeah. Well, I can take I'll take Athens, Clark County. I'll take it. Wonderful. What about Decatur? You know, Decatur has been doing this work for about 6 years. They've been at it since 2015, 2016, doing equity work. And it's, you know, as you know, she was the assistant city manager, was telling me this is a process that it just never ends. You know, they've been at it for 6 years and it's still, you can never, you know, it has to go on. So it's sort of evolved, but Commissioner Court, do you want to do Decatur? Okay, I'll send you the contact. I did talk to Linda last week, so I'll fill you in. Okay, but thank you for doing that. Let's see, Amy. Okay, so now let's go outside of Georgia, and you know, if I'm sure many of you have visited Asheville, North Carolina. Well, the city happens to have an equity and inclusion department, which is great. So, does anybody want to go on a field trip to Asheville? Does anybody? Is Commissioner Russell? Okay. Asheville, wonderful. They have a human relations commission that they've created. So it seems to be a pretty deep, they have a equity and inclusion assessment that it's all there in the email. The email at the bottom that I sent has resources and contacts that you can see. Otherwise, you can just go to the city website and just Google and see who you can find that as a contact, or reach out the city manager for, for who the right contact would be. So we have now Mountain View, California. Any Californians here? Mountain View, California.
I have a quick question. Are we doubling up? Do we each
I
need
think we're gonna have to, because we have 10, and then we have like somebody like we want somebody to reach out to like Gare and the National League of Cities. So we're probably gonna have to take 2 each of us. So yeah.
I'm happy to do California.
Okay. So Amy, thank you so much, Commissioner. Yes.
I had dropped in the chat. I don't have a preference, so you can just assign me to whatever city. It's Commissioner Owen.
Okay, well, okay, wonderful. So let's give you, where are you from, Commissioner Owen?
New Jersey.
Oh, New Jersey. There's nothing from New Jersey here. Let's see, would you like Texas, Virginia, Wisconsin, or Minnesota?
I'll take Minnesota.
Minnesota. Okay, so it's the city of Minneapolis, and it's one of those cities that Stephen discussed with us a few months ago. So Minneapolis, they have a civil rights equity division on the email at the bottom there. So that'd be great. Thank you so much. City of Minneapolis, we have Melissa. And then now we go to San Antonio. I can take San Antonio because my parents live there. So it's a very beautiful, welcoming city. So I'll go for San Antonio. They have an Office of Equity there. Now we have Albemarle County in Virginia, the Office of Equity and Inclusion. And we need for Virginia, and we also have people who are not here at the meeting this evening who we can assign to. Let's see. Steve, you have a comment? Oh, Steve Chapman?
Fat fingered it.
Okay, sorry. Okay. So yeah, maybe we have a few commissioners who are not here this evening. Do we or no? We have Jose Hardy, who's not here. Yeah, we have several people. Jose Hardy and MG Paetza email, and Mike at Emory, and Robbie Hershen. Okay. So should we assign it to the other people in the committee, the other, the other cities,
Yes, I
and
think we should.
and the National League of Cities? So so Amy, you may be the only one with 2 cities. I don't know if that would be fair.
It's okay.
It's okay. Okay. So we'll reach out to the other commissioners, and hopefully by Tuesday or Wednesday, we will have gathered a list of questions, and I can send it to you in a Word document so that we sort of try to get the same information for every city. So do we have any 7:57? Do we have any questions? Hopefully we'll get this done before our next meeting, so that we can do brief presentations at the meeting in October, and then this should really guide our recommendations. Again, we will have real life, practical recommendations that have been used by other cities and work. So this, I think, will be really great. So any questions? Anything else? No? Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the long weekend. I hope you guys get to not work on Labor Day weekend. I hope you're able to relax and have some leisure. It's been thank you for joining us this evening, and thank you so much. And we'll see you the first Thursday of October, for our subcommittee meeting, but we have our commission meeting in 2 weeks from today. So it's going to be in person. We're still trying to figure out where we're going to meet, but they're going to have the in-person and the Zoom options for that meeting in 2 weeks. Okay. Well, thank you and have a good evening. And
thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner Rossano?
No, this is great. And we do have
Okay.
enough cities left over for our commissioners that were
Yes.
unable to attend. Okay.
We have a couple more. We have the 2 organizations too, so we'll figure it out. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Take care. Good night. Bye.
Thank you.